You know what time it is. More Most Wanted 2 gameplay has been released by Obscure Gamers. This is a build from April 2012, so towards the end of the release of the game. We're seeing it take form, a weird form of the new game that we got, the 2012 that we got and didn't like, and Most Wanted 2. They were kind of at a crossroads. I think this is where they were probably starting to flush in all the stuff to make it bare bones, or take stuff out, should I say, to make it much more of a bare bones racer. In this video, you'll see there's a lot of menus and stuff in place that particularly aren't in the game, but they're in the style of the actual release. April 2012 is pretty far into it. I mean, usually they have a few months for polish and for the most part just getting it out, sorting it out. So for the fact that they had it pretty close to finish from what it looks like, we didn't get to see all of it. Unfortunately, the game apparently is very unstable on this build. Hopefully you can find maybe a little bit earlier, a little bit later builds and just kind of see exactly where this game properly was development wise and where they were heading to at this point, because in my eyes it looks like they were still trying to cling on to the fact that there was a Most Wanted 2, but then it seems like a lot of things have been thrown on top at this point, because if you didn't know, game development it's a modular process, multiple people working on it at once, and you know, a lot of people are still believing every time I post a video at this is not real. Why would someone go to this extreme to fake something like this? You have to be more crazy to fake something like this than to believe it's fake. It's actual game. Like, what? You look at it. Seriously, just look at it. It has so much early stuff in there that would particularly be taken out during development. And some people were confused in the fact that I thought I was saying that Most Wanted 2 is coming out soon. It's not. It came out in 2012. The whole development process throughout these videos has been shown. Well, not the whole thing, but the big chunk of it, showing you how it was earlier on, how it was later on. Even, you know, look at that, customizer controls. Could you believe it? Unbound. That's definitely dev looking. Seriously. If anyone could fake something like this, I mean, they could. They've gone to a massive extreme to fake the heads-up display and such from going, like, the needles from working and stuff. Like, that's just pure extreme. On the main menu anyway, you can see that we have the single player, and it has 35 events. Now, I'm not particularly sure exactly what that means, but as we went through the gameplay a little bit later, I think it's pretty much all of the events in the game. So the game was actually going to have only 35 events that has been added at this point anyway, and I think that's possibly one of the reasons as to why they scrapped the whole idea. They could have just added in more races, but they just thought, you know what, 35 races, that's not enough. Including, it has 35 missions actually, so let's just scrap the whole game. No, there's a lot of obviously reasons as to why they did it, but look at that, working needles, working map, everything. Do you think someone seriously has the time to do that? You're a mentalist if you think so. Anyway, so the M3 is the car that they start you in. It actually had a garage. Now, these garages actually got sent videos that these garages are actually accessible. If you drive up quick enough, you can actually go inside, and it doesn't actually do anything. It doesn't open. It just, you can drive inside down the thing, and you can sit in there. That's basically it. But it was genuinely a garage, and I believe there were multiple garages around the map. But here you could select your car, and we're going through the missions here. Now, the map is pretty much complete at this point. I think probably it still had the airport in it, because let's be honest, we know that the airport was in there and was removed as DLC. We definitely know that criterion. But seriously, going through it's got so much in here that I just want to talk about on this menu alone. If you look at the bottom of the screen, it says blacklist numbers, and as we progress through here, you can see that some points in the story are blacklist events, it would seem. So they had proper blacklist events in here, and they were still at the point of having, yes, we're going to have these blacklist events. So I think, honestly, looking at this, there seems to be more than 35. I don't know about you, but there seems to be more than 35, and if that is the case, I'm guessing 35 is the main missions, and the races around it don't count as missions. Now, the car list, pretty much exactly the same as it was. People were asking as well, you know, some of the cars, if you didn't realize, were removed from the game and added as DLC. So I'm guessing maybe some of those will still be here. And also some, for example, the Hummer H1 was not in the game at all. It was in the trailer, but it was never put into the game. Don't know exactly what went on. Some people thought licensing issues, that sort of thing, because Hummer went under, if you didn't know. So I'm just curious as to how far this is. Like, does it actually have the Hummer? Again, the guy mentioned, Obscure Gamers, they mentioned that the build is very unstable at this point, so they didn't particularly manage to do a whole lot without it crashing. which is a bit unfortunate. But now we get into the actual gameplay and the driving and such, and this is where it's going to get a little bit interesting, and I'm going to talk a few bits about it. So you can see that the map is pretty damn there. It's pretty much the same as it was at this point as Most Wanted 2012. They have the speed cameras and stuff sat around, so they definitely did some extra little bits other than the main missions. So the main missions were in place, but I still don't understand as to why we got the game that we got. Like, we need to get like all the builds possible to try and figure out, like, even that was smoothed out and more animated than it was in the previous build, so it means that they did want the spike ships in the game, which I personally think would crap. I really don't want those. I'm glad they were removed, but at the same time, this game looks better. It still has a little bit of Criterion handling on this. I can't particularly say it's the drifting as such. It just seems like the car goes, when you turn really quickly, it looks like the car's trying to drift, but holding off of it so much. That was using the handbrake, I imagine, but some of the corners, as you'll see in a few minutes, it's trying its best not to drift, and it seems like it just wants to drift. It likes Criterion took their handling model and said, like, don't drift, turn the drift option off, and then you just turn around the corner like a goddamn maniac. So this event right here, I think it's, well, pretty similar to what the E3 event was. The introductions are very similar to how they were in the final game, and I think that was probably something throughout the whole development they were trying to do. Rush Hour, I believe, is the first proper race you get into on the game, and that's one of the only ones I think they said that they actually managed to get working, which is unfortunate, because I'd really like to see some of the actual proper missions, see if they had story cutscenes, that sort of thing, so hopefully we see some of that soon. But you already know this portion, this race, you already know it's exactly as it was in the actual E3 demo, and the takedowns had arrived, unfortunately, which particularly not one of my favorite features, and for some reason it penalized you for crashing in that one. But seriously, this is where, as I said, it's a big old mix of both of the Criterion 2012 that we got and the Most Wanted 2 Criterion game that we want, that people, that Criterion wanted to give us. A lot of people shout at EA for this, and I think it's a balance of the two. They were maybe a bit too ambitious. I highly doubt EA said, okay, everybody, stop what you're doing. Just you've got to rush to complete. They don't do that. They had a set time, and they had they have to release every year. They had 2 years development, I think it was, because the map probably took them like a year. From the earlier builds, there was one January build. You saw that the map was pretty much fully done. So it's so bizarre how you look at this build, which was from April 2012, and it has these missions, and it has the cops and the takedowns, and it has so much stuff in here that the final game didn't have. When it's an April build, that's so soon to the release of the game. Like around October time, you're gonna be wanting to finish up totally. I'm talking polish around that time, like final polish. It's so bizarre. Something happened very towards the end that they were like, right, we need to pull out a lot of content. I mean, it might have been a couple of months after this. And I want to see that build, although I know it's just going to be basically Most Wanted 2012. It would confirm the fact that my expectations of the build after this going absolutely awful. I think this is the beginning of the builds going downhill. But it's such a shame that they had to kind of decide to get away from the idea of it. I mean, you just look at it, and this game could have had so much more if they just had like a design editor, customization. I don't know what's going on here, early games, but seriously, they could have just added a few more little tweaks in here, as I said, livery editor, customization, and they would have been gold. The handling model starting to go a bit more Criterion, which I didn't particularly like, but overall, the game looks still better than Most Wanted 2012 that we got. I'm not talking visually and stuff, obviously it's running like poo and here and there. It's a PS3 build from April 2012. They didn't need to get the polish done yet. But they were using their own engine as well, actually. This is the first time. They were using a Chameleon engine, which is the Burnout engine. And they were making it a Need for Speed on that engine for the first time. And you see it always is about like high graphics, high detail. You're actually using real cars, so the manufacturers want them to the top specification. And the police, I forgot to even mention the police. The police seem much more brutal in this game compared to they were in 2012. But I don't see them upping the ante at this point. Maybe it's to do with the progression. Maybe they didn't have multiple levels of police. Maybe they added multiple levels of police later in development to make up for the fact that they have so little content in this bloody game. but the takedowns are quite cool. The only thing I don't like is taking down raiders. Police, I don't care about. Spike strip thing, not cool. Don't like it. Make it stop. It's bloody stupid. But I see that this game, even if it did come out as it was, like with story and such, it would have had the weird random ass spike strip thing, and it still would have had a load of little bits. Maybe the criterion handling they would have thrown on still, and it still would have peed me off so much for them calling it a Need for Speed game when you know for a fact it is not a Need for Speed game. But each of their own, I guess. Let me know what you think at this point. Would you have preferred this exact game that we're looking at here from April 2012, or would you have preferred Most Wanted 2012 that we got? I want to know, but thank you again so much to Obscure Gamers for getting hold of these builds. I cannot wait for Grand Theft Auto's videos. He's making a documentary video cutting through all of this gameplay and properly talking about everything. I'm really excited about that, so definitely keep your eyes locked on their channels and mine, because I'm going to be doing my best to cover it as well, because I want in on this action. I want to know why Most Wanted 2012 was bloody rubbish. Anyway, be sure to smash like, subscribe if you are new, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Until next time, guys, peace.